Hello one, hello all, it's the gothiest ghost of them all, Casper in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Lambrini Girls, Who Let the Dogs Out? Who let the dogs out? Does anybody believe in originality anymore? Is there gonna be a cover on here? You know, I really thought you would be less insufferable this time around. I thought we had a good thing going with the jingles, you know? So please, for the love of God, stick to the jingles, please. This is a UK punk band with a plethora of non-album singles. With a new debut album, they are finally carrying out a full-length project. And it is their first project, it is their debut. They are releasing under the label City Slang, which have released not only some punk LPs, but hip-hop LPs as well, such as the fantastic McKinley-Dixon Beloved Paradise Jazz. And not only that, but the mixing is done by Seth Manchester, who, if you were paying attention, also did the mixing for that fantastic Model Actress album. And all the songs here are pretty short. This LP is 29 minutes long, under half an hour. Definitely doing a mix of intriguing influences from noise rock, post-punk, mostly in the Riot Grrrl vein, with a mix of garage punk, queercore. And these songs are mostly contained with a vast amount of power. And this thing also shows different displays of fucking loudness. And yes, a lot of these are fast-paced, but they do have their cool-down moments as well. Surprisingly, like on Special Different, it has this psychedelic-like passage. It's very brief, it's very atmospheric, only to have the momentum and tension build up again and crush you like this album has done. And the thing is, like, they're not only crushing it when it comes to the production, but you know what? Let's just get into the production part of this first, because there's definitely more I want to touch on with this LP. So yes, you are getting crescendos, which I do think is the best on Special Different. And there's also, it's also done on the track Love, but honestly, I prefer it done on Special Different. And the drum fills are mostly super manic, with a lot of ferocity, so that only makes sense for the breathing room on this LP. And there's also moments where the drums are super tight, but still sound raw, almost going into a breakbeat passage, going into breakbeat rhythms. So yes, having a sequential feel, with the inclusion of this warbly synth bass, sharp droning synth lines like on the song CUNTOLOGY 101, or also on the opener with these fantastic breakbeat drum patterns. There's also a lot to be said about the guitar, a lot of low end, a lot of blaring, a lot of density. So you're definitely getting distortion most of the time. So as you're getting this distortion, this should be no secret that this is not a cleanly produced album. In fact, this album is pretty dirty, it's pretty grimy. But honestly, that's how I like my post-punk, that's how I like my punk, that's how I like my metal, it's how I like my rock music in general. Like, I really don't care for the super clean, super refined type of rock, type of metal music. No! Fuck that shit. I like it dirty and raw. And I think Nepo Baby is definitely a great example of that, with how heavy and distorting it is, and also how searing the tremolos are on that track. It really sounds like a train engine coming, with some very harsh noise rock, layered over this melodic bass line, and drum fills. And again, that's how I like my punk, that's how I like my rock, that's how I like my metal. But my enjoyment of this isn't just the post-punk inclusions, although that is my bread and butter. It's not only the Riot Grrrl, it's not only the DIY feel that this album brings, because while I like the rawness, and that's all well and great, there's also the messaging I need to touch on as well, with the inclusion of humor. So this is pretty much showing a mirror to a very problematic society, whether it's institutional, whether it's capitalism, whether it's misogyny, fascism. Like, it kicks off with Bad Apple, which is just an absolute onslaught to how gross and how tyrannical and how corrupt the police system is. With some also nice dub delays too. I gotta Got to touch on the dub delays. But this thing is an anti-cop punk rager. Not only to cops, but also the milquetoast bootlickers. The false narrative of them protecting and serving. Just pointing out the plethora of tyrannical actions they've done. It's truly and honestly like the punk version of fuck the police, and I really think this needs to be heard. Not in a gross, cold way. No, fuck that shit. This thing is actually to the root of the problem, to the point. There's also the call out of egregious sexual harassment in the workplace, the giving a no-holds-barred litany of very gross sexual predator actions given by the boss, and also taking a stab at a severe degree of misogyny here that I feel needs a vast amount of addressing, and I feel they do that perfect. There's also the delineating of low-income areas facing gentrification, leading to places of community being tarnished, being monopolized on, town halls becoming breweries. Basically, these savage capitalistic actions against people who have contributed to the society, who have built the community, and then told to depart, told to leave after they built the same community. They're being told to leave from. They're being evicted from. And in a way, we also get the attacks on higher power, on NEPO baby, with a hilarious line saying, "Wouldn't know socialism if it punched him in the dick," as the track goes into a brutal takedown of those who are born into wealth and goes to their head and starts taking the easy way, acting like they started from the bottom, which they didn't, acting very revolutionary when they're not, really ripping apart the fraudulence, really showing a mirror to who they truly are, and no longer will we stand for them to capitalize off that. There's also songs that are topically focused on mental health, that delves into some very deep concerning issues, very troubling issues that society faces, like eating disorders, bulimia. On the song Nothing Tastes as Good as It Feels, or Special Different, that has these raw, ragged, searing tremolos, as she speaks on being standout, but it's a detriment to her health, her mental health. Truly and honestly speaking, from perspectives here, I'm not exactly sure if this is what she's experienced, and if it is, that is deeply concerning, which I hope not, but I feel these are very much different scenarios of whether she lived or other people are living, and she's basically telling their story. Now, I will say though, there are some downsides to this record, mostly with the tracks. Although having good messaging to them, good intentions, there are some tracks that maybe do come off a little repetitive, maybe a little too on the nose when it comes to the humor, and there are some parts that do sound a little dated, or sometimes there is a very faint touch of guitar, and I don't really think it adds to the track. I really prefer it when it's more cohesive, more full, but still has that very dirty sound. No Homo comes to mind. That really does sound like, not only with the outdated term of phrase, but also, why does this sound like a Green Day song? Also, I do wish the record was a bit longer too. But overall, I think this is a very decent start for this band. I do wish there was more consistency sonically, but lyrically, I feel like they have a lot to say, and I'm truly digging that. And honestly, I feel this is something I'll probably go back to again and again, just something to throw on for some bangers. Because while this isn't probably the most conceptual, it definitely does have very hard-hitting topics on here that I feel needs to be addressed. Also, I will say there is versatility too, which I definitely dug. Like dabbling into electronic, but having it not sound overproduced. But yeah, there's a good, solid handful of tracks on this thing. So yes, I do love the hey tyranny, hey fascism, hey everything that's wrong to society, everything wrong with society mirror. And here's a spit in the face to go with it. Towards, again, authority, fascism, capitalism, bigotry, misogyny. And I'm really looking forward to see what they're gonna do on the next release. I'm feeling a 3.5 out of 5 on this record. If you've checked this out, what'd you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And that's it. Caspa, Lambrini Girls, Who Let the Dogs Out, till we meet again.